All right, I think I figured it out. What a horrible intro. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pop Live. As you can see, it's just me, and that is why everything has gone totally awry. Jamie is not here today. She's taking a mental day, but I thought I could run the show, and obviously, by the looks of the clock, I did not do too well. But we're here now, and Ashley, we can see you and we can hear you, and well, without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce our special guest here. We're so excited to have you on here because you have such a wealth of experience and knowledge and expertise, and the fact that you're willing to talk a little bit about how our nonprofit friends can market themselves on a low budget, which, let's face it, for most nonprofits, low budget or no budget is pretty much their language. But you have some really great stuff and tips and suggestions that these nonprofits can do to help them as they continue to market themselves and communicate with their audiences. So, Ashley, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here, Nolan. I'm excited. I hope that Jamie has the best mental health day ever and that she gets all the rest and relaxation she can stand. So,
Oh, thank you. And she said she's really sad that she can't join us on this one because she's looking so forward to this. But she'll get to watch it later, and we'll talk to you again, I'm sure, after we're done.
definitely.
So,
Definitely.
Ashley, I know you have like a huge laundry list of accolades, but if you wouldn't mind sharing with our viewers kind of your background, what your company is all about, what kind of things you specialize in, that would be really awesome because I know most of our viewers are here in Hawaii, and you're actually not in Hawaii, you're in California, right?
Yeah, I'm in Santa Monica. So, not too far away, but too far away that I can't enjoy your beaches. So,
Well, we're going to change that soon. We're going to get you here soon.
oh, yeah, definitely. But no, a little bit about my background. So I've been in marketing forever. The rolling joke that I like to tell my clients is that I've been in marketing since before Facebook even had ads, because that's what people tend to focus on these days. But I got my start on the corporate side. Went to college for PR and then left and tried to figure out what I wanted to do in the realm of this digital marketing space. So I actually got started at corporate working for some really large brands like AT&T, JC Penney, and managing different areas of marketing and digital strategy and communications for them. And then went and came out to California to work for a startup, which that was a really fun experience. And then after that, decided that I kind of wanted to take everything that I'd learned from those corporate experiences and show smaller businesses how to make things work using some of those same strategies and tactics, because a lot of what makes marketing really effective for smaller businesses or nonprofits, and I have worked with some nonprofits in the past as well, is the technique and the strategy and the framework that companies use. Everything else in the middle of that is really interchangeable. You can have a small budget or a large budget. You can have a small team or a large team. But if you follow the right steps and you follow the right framework, that's really the key to making sure that your marketing is successful. So launched my own consultancy. And so now I work with my own clients, helping them build out marketing plans and really understand how to craft the right messages to get in front of the right audience to inspire them to take the right call to action that's going to help the organization reach their goals.
Oh man, that is why we're so excited to have you here, because like everything that you just mentioned is like what so many nonprofits could definitely use like some background or information or suggestions on. But for a lot of them, it's like, the old adage is like we can't afford to, hire marketing consultants and whatnot. So for you to come on here and donate your time and knowledge with us is like we super greatly appreciate it. And I know a lot of our viewers are going to be so blessed with what you're going to share with us. But let's just go straight into it, really. Like, as far as for you said you've had experience working with nonprofits and such, and I know, like, different regions have their own different challenges and whatnot. But for the most part, would you say it's fair that a lot of what kind of works and what kind of challenges um, nonprofits have? It kind of There are some certain ones that are pretty basic across the board, no matter if they're in Hawaii or if they're in the East Coast or West Coast. Would you say that's fair?
Definitely. I would say most of the nonprofits I've worked with have two main issues. They think, keyword think, that they
Hmm.
don't have a budget,
Yeah.
and they potentially don't have a lot of manpower, so they may not have a full scale marketing team or anyone in their organization who's fully responsible for marketing. And so I think a lot of times that leaves nonprofits, no matter what their cause is, who they're helping, or where they're located, can leave nonprofit leaders feeling a little, afraid of marketing, because they're like, well, I don't have a lot of money to spend and I don't necessarily have a marketing expert on my team. But some of the tips that we're going to talk through today will show nonprofits where they can start finding some of these different resources. Because again, at the end of the day, with marketing, if you've got a good framework, you can plug in pretty much anything and still get good results.
Yeah, and I think, and we want to say hello to Brian, who's here. Hey, Brian, thanks for joining us. I think for a lot of nonprofits, like who do share that kind of mentality of like, oh, we don't have a budget, that just leaves them with not thinking outside of the box and being creative with their marketing, and they don't do any marketing, which really hampers them because their whole probably the second most important thing for them, of course, first important is helping whatever community that they're trying to affect change for and help. But the second is to spread their awareness and also get support, and whether that be financial or volunteers and whatnot. And in order to get that to happen, people need to hear from you and know about you. And that's where marketing comes in. And so that's where it's a little difficult for them to realize just how important marketing is, yet most of them don't have any kind of action plan for marketing. So today I kind of asked you if you'd be willing to share with us, marketing tips for nonprofits on a low or no budget. And so I know you being the expert that you are, you've laid out a whole bunch of things in order. So you're way more organized than I am, and probably way more organized than our show actually deserves.
That's just me being annoyingly type A. Sometimes it comes in handy, and then sometimes people are like, "Why do you have a list for everything?" And I'm like, "Because lists make me feel better. Like that gives me comfort." So I do have a list. And if anyone wants the list, you can just leave a note in the comments, and I'll send out like a little summary afterwards.
Oh,
So
awesome.
anyone who wants these tips in a written format, we'll get those to you.
Oh, that's so cool. Thanks, Ash.
Of course, of course.
And just know that Jamie would be one of those who just like would be like so happy when she hears that you have a list and that you're organized, and then point at me and be like, that guy is the opposite of it and you need to teach him that. So since she's not here in spirit, I'll bring her essence here to the conversation.
That'll be the next workshop. Will be like how to make an organized list. The workshop,
Yeah.
something like that.
All right, so let's go ahead and start with the first thing that you think nonprofit organizations need when looking at marketing.
Yeah. So tip number one: create a budget. And we've talked about budget a lot already since we've gotten started. And I know that there are a lot of nonprofits that feel they don't have a budget. They're like, we have no dollars for marketing. But the reality is that most organizations do have a budget for marketing that they're already spending. They just don't realize it. So
Ah,
you may make decisions on an infrequent basis to run ads on Facebook. So, let's say every quarter, you spend $50 on Facebook ads. Let's say that you are spending money on a tool like Canva, that you're using to create different graphics. If you've upgraded and you've got the professional version of that, it's like $15 a month. Let's say that you potentially are using a platform like Hootsuite or Planoly, and you're using one of those systems to schedule out the publishing of your marketing messages so that you don't have to do it, yourself every single day manually. Those are dollars that you are actually spending towards marketing. And so when you start to think about your marketing budget that way, it does two things. So the first thing is it just makes you more aware of how much you're actually spending and investing. And sometimes that can add up to a lot more than organizations realize. Even if you send, let's say, someone on your team to a marketing seminar or you enroll them into some form of marketing class, that again, those are dollars that you're investing in marketing that potentially are being invested in ways that don't get you the best return, or there might be other free alternatives that you could use, as opposed to what you're spending some of those dollars on, and then you could reroute the dollars that you've spent back towards some form of marketing that you can actually track, that's going to get you results, and that's going to get you closer to your goal of raising funds, getting more donations, etc. So I always tell the clients that I work with is, if you've been in operation for any amount of time, really, go back and take a look at what you've actually spent your money on, where any of those dollars might touch marketing, and then consider that as a marketing budget that can actually be reallocated towards other means if you need to.
Yeah, and even when I hear you explaining that, I also think about so many nonprofits do have budget to like do like logoed items, like logo T-shirts or pens and whatnot, and so they are allocating funds for things like that, which is still also marketing too, because they're trying to get their name out and try to give things out to the community that brings some brand awareness, right?
Exactly, exactly. And imagine that you've got a budget of $1,000 a year that you're spending on logo T-shirts and pins that you're passing out to the community to build brand awareness for your organization. Let's say you just take a third of those dollars and spend them on an ad campaign that's really effective, or you take the first quarter of the year and you redirect some of those funds to setting up a really robust email marketing system where you've got all of your donors' information captured the right way so that you can start sending emails out to them on a regular basis. Suddenly you're going to have more donations, that you can have more than $1,000 a year on t-shirts, just because you temporarily rerouted some of the dollars that you were spending on marketing towards something that's actually going to get you results and a good return on your investment that you can track. So it's really just changing the way you think about the money that you're spending on marketing, and looking for any dollars that you might have, because sometimes you can get massive results with like $50 and a scrappy little Facebook ad, can help you grow your email list or get more signups for your event or whatever goal it is that you might have.
I love that you say that, because I think one of the things, and for a lot of us here in Hawaii, I think it's kind of accepted knowledge that for not just in nonprofits, but just us as a people in general here, like it's very hard for us to look outside of what is the norm and what has been done for years, and to change it up. And for a lot of the nonprofits that we've worked with, um, it's been commonplace for them to just be, well, I know we're supposed to do X, Y, and Z, which is something that maybe was done 10, 15 years ago, but switching out from not necessarily spending as much on like a t-shirt, but reallocating funds to a Facebook ad, it's just too much of a change for them. And it's like, I can't even think about that. This is what we usually do. We make banners. Like, let's just do that, And so I think having you explain that and give the relevance as to what the change could equate to, and that it could bring in more direct funds in donations and signups, like that ultimately is what they want. And so for you to kind of explain that now, it makes sense to them, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And always tiptoe. I like to tell clients, like, if it's something that you're not comfortable with, you can tiptoe into those waters. So if
Mm,
you're, looking at $1,000 that you have, traditionally spent on something like logoed items, and you're considering, that you might spend some of those dollars in a different form of marketing, do a test first. You can always test everything before you jump all the way in. So maybe you don't take the $1,000 up front and spend that on ads. Maybe you just take, like I said, $50 or
hmm.
$100. See what return you actually get in testing that out. And if things look good, then that's your green light to, go ahead and dive deeper into something else. And like I said, the idea is that hopefully as you're trying these new things, they're actually making you more money, or getting you
Right.
more donations and getting you more contributions. So it's going to replenish some of those funds that you would have spent elsewhere. Hopefully that's the goal.
Yeah, and we've spent a couple episodes talking about the importance of building your email list and getting a newsletter going and such. So I love that you're, doubling down on that and explaining that to our listeners so that, or our viewers, so that they know that we actually said something of value to them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Great minds think alike. That's what I like to.
All right, what's your next tip?
Okay, so tip number two is to track your results always. We'll just go back to the logoed item
Hmm.
scenario because I think that makes a lot of sense and people can kind of relate to that.
Yeah.
If you spend $1,000 a year on logoed t-shirts and pins, what's your return on that? How much money did those logo t-shirts and pins actually bring back into your organization, as a result of getting them printed and passing them out? It's going to be kind of hard for you to track that. So while those logoed items are a form of marketing, it's not necessarily the best form of marketing for actually knowing if you're getting some kind of return. So when you are, looking at where do you want to invest your marketing dollars, try to stick to channels of marketing where you can actually track your results to see, are your efforts driving people to your website? Are you getting people to leave, comments on your social channels if you're running social channels? Are people sending you DMs? And then ultimately, are you getting more donations and contributions as a direct result of the time, effort, and money that you're spending on marketing?
Hmm.
If you're doing something in terms of marketing and it's not being tracked, find a way to track it. And if you can't find a way to track it, consider spending your time and effort somewhere else. One tool that I think every business should use, every small business or nonprofit can benefit from using, is Google Analytics. So, if you've got your website for your nonprofit, make sure that you've got Google Analytics on your website and that it's properly configured so that you can track how much traffic you have coming in, what pages people are looking at, how much time they're actually spending on your website, and whether or not they're taking the actions that you want them to take once they arrive on your site. And looking at those numbers, on a regular basis tells you, are you growing? Are you getting that brand awareness that you're actually looking for? You can see if your numbers are going up, that things are working out. But if your website traffic is going down and you don't have as many people looking at your website, then you might want to change things up a little bit.
Yeah, I love the fact that you're bringing up finding ways to track results because for so many years, like when I was working in advertising and in television and print, a lot of my clients, small businesses and large, would be like, how do I know if it's working? And a lot of the times it was guessing, like, well, do people tell you that they saw your ad? Like, and how is your sales going up? But nowadays with things like Google Analytics, you can actually see a lot of specific details in whether things are working and whatnot. And I love that you're saying that you can use that information to guide your strategies, because now it's not so much of a let's just throw a dart against the wall and see what it hits. Now we can be really specific with how we do things, and that in turn you save more money because you're not spending it recklessly. You're putting it towards something specific, and then you're saving yourself time because you're not just like wandering around like, well, what do we try this time? It's just like we're actually seeing what's going on, so it actually saves in the long run, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It just makes everything that you do more efficient. And again, when you don't have a lot of dollars, you've got a small budget and you don't have a ton of manpower to focus on marketing, you have to make sure that you're making the most of, absolutely every dollar and second that you spend on marketing efforts. A good example that I'll share really quick. So I teach some marketing classes, and I had a student who worked for a nonprofit that was like a kids summer camp. So they would raise funds, they put on this summer camp, and they would try to get people to make donations to sponsor children to go to this camp. And so as we were going through one of the classes, we got to the point about Google Analytics and tracking results. And so I was like, do you have Google Analytics on your site? And she was like, yeah, I think so, but like, I'm not sure. I've never looked at it before. Like, let me, try to hunt it down. So, she spends a week chasing down different people and people who used to work at the organization that had left. But finally, she finds someone who's got the Google Analytics account for their website. And we found out that they actually had a really good amount of people going to their donation page. So they had around like 100 people a week visiting the donation page on
Wow.
their website. But not that many people were actually donating. So I was like, she's like, no one actually gives us money, but this many people are visiting this page. And I was like, okay, well then like, let's look at your page. Their donation page was horrible.
Oh
Like they
no.
made it, we made it so hard. Like the process and the flow of someone actually giving a donation was so difficult that people were just backing out of it. And so I'm like, yeah, like if you look at these numbers, then you can start to see that you're getting people to the right place, but they're not taking the right next step. And that, again, just makes you empowered to, be efficient with everything that you're doing when you actually know what your numbers are and you're tracking all of your results.
Yeah, and I think what you're pointing to as well that a lot of nonprofits don't realize is that, especially with people these days, you need to make it as easy as possible. And
Yes.
so a lot of nonprofits are just like, yeah, we have a donation page done, but not really looking into, well, what is the user experience like? Have we made it as easy and efficient as possible for a visitor to get the information that they need to take the action that you want? And if not, then we got to fix that, because like for this example, they lost so many opportunities to get donations just based on, not paying attention to the process and how donations are accepted.
Exactly. And then for, that student specifically, like prior to that, we had a final project that everyone had to turn in at the end to be graded. And so she was planning on focusing her final project around email marketing, but then she switched it and she was like, actually, I'm going to focus my final project on creating a really good landing page for our
Mm.
donation portion of our website. So again, for an organization that didn't have a lot of time, didn't have a lot of money, tracking results and knowing what was actually going on in their business and what was happening on their website gave her the opportunity to then shift and focus on something that literally like brought in funds as soon as she was able to get that page fixed because they already had people going there. So
This is so awesome. I feel like I'm going to like marketing church. Like every time you say stuff, I want to be like, yes, amen. Because it's like, oh, this is the way you say it just makes so much sense and is so simple to process, but it is so true. And I think this is gold. Like if anything, if our nonprofits get anything from this, is just how simple these concepts are and how easy to enact these actions. Whereas I think initially, especially a lot of these nonprofits that are so overwhelmed with all of the other tasks that they have to do in running a nonprofit organization, the last thing they think they can have time for is just learning a whole new process and stuff. And the way you've broken it down so far is just like, no, these are very simple, easy things to do. So I love this. I know our viewers are going to say the same. Brian, in fact, is saying that, going back to your love of lists, he says they are the best. So you've got a following here.
I love that. I love that. We're on the same page, Brian.
Yeah. So I love what you have coming up for step number three, because this is what we really focus a lot on as content creators at Pop. But tell me and our viewers what number three is for your tips.
Absolutely. So, tip number three is to focus on storytelling. And this might be like the most important thing you can do, sandwiched in between the other tips I have to share. But if you're a nonprofit, you have to focus on storytelling, and making sure that you're telling the right stories that are going to lead your audience to the right call to action that you want them to take. Most nonprofits are really doing the most good in the world that the world needs.
Mm-hmm.
There are large companies, like I said, I got my start, working for Fortune 500s. And on that corporate side, yeah, you have really large companies that, donate so much money a year, but it's kind of blind in a lot of situations. Like they're
Right.
kind of just throwing dollars at situations. But nonprofits are normally boots on the ground, they
Mm.
work with the people. And so digging in to tell the right stories around the work that you're doing will make all the difference in bringing in donors, getting people who are super excited to volunteer and contribute their time, their effort, their resources to help your nonprofit thrive. Some specific stories that you can focus on creating for your nonprofit. The first would be your origin story. So tell us about why your nonprofit got started. What was the catalyst, the spark that led to this nonprofit actually being founded? And a lot of nonprofits will get started, but they may flounder in the first couple of years. So what is it that is the passion in your organization that keeps you going, that's kept you around, and pushed you to really make a difference in people's lives? The other kind of story that you can tell for your nonprofit are your founder stories. So the specific individuals that started your organization, people want to know about them. They want to know what was their background, what was their upbringing, what situations did they go through in life that led them to a point where they were passionate enough about this topic to actually start a whole nonprofit around it and help other people. Because that takes a lot of energy, because running a nonprofit is hard.
Yeah.
So you have to be really passionate about it, and telling stories around that passion can make all the difference. And then also, building some of those strong stories about how your specific organization is either helping individuals, animals, or the planet. Again, going out, capturing those stories in a really strong, powerful way that tugs the heartstrings, just gets people right there in the heart, or really makes them think about their own impact and how they could be doing things differently to make the world a better place. When you can really get grounded in what those stories are and you can tell them consistently throughout your marketing, that will make all the difference in bringing the right people your direction.
Now I have my own ideas as to why I think it's important, but for you, what is the why as to why tell those founder stories? Why tell those beginning stories? Like what benefit does that create for a nonprofit organization or for the potential supporters of that organization?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, the benefit of starting with why is that it helps people know, like, and trust you that much faster. And know, like, and trust is a concept in marketing that, pretty much everything you do in marketing should be an effort to get people to know, like, and trust you, because that's who we want to work with. That's who we stick around. That's who we have conversations with. We promote things that we know, like, and trust, or organizations that we know, like, and trust. We tell our friends and family about organizations that we know, like, and trust. And so when you're able to tell those stories, you kind of create this stickiness where you make a real connection with the person who's hearing this story. They can in some way see either a part of themselves in that, or see a place where they can help out. in that story, where they can be a part of what's going on and, a part of the ecosystem that you're building around your nonprofit. And they'll remember that story and it will help them kind of stick in and, and say, yeah, I want to be a part of this story in the future. Like, I think that I could, help and contribute and help this nonprofit accomplish their goals and what they're trying to do. So storytelling kind of helps in that way.
So for example, if there's an organization, I think typically what they'll do if we're looking at, say, their website, the first thing they do is typically explain what they do and who they're helping, which doesn't involve a lot of the time storytelling. It's more of like factual, like here's the statistics almost, like here's the rundown, here's the ingredients. So based on what you're explaining now, being that storytelling is one of the top priorities and importance of marketing, how how would you imagine, like if we were looking at the website, like how you could incorporate that with still helping an organization explain, because you have the a newcomer, the visitor's attention for just that small amount of time. How would you lay it out or implement this style of marketing for an organization?
Absolutely. So, one of the best ways you can incorporate storytelling is video. I forget what the exact statistic is, so don't quote me on this or hate me if I'm wrong. But I think that people watching video on the internet will take up somewhere between like 60 to 80% of bandwidth over the next 5 years. So, if you can, have your factual information, we help this type of person by offering X type of resource, but finding ways to incorporate video into what you're doing with your nonprofit and telling that story, whether it be a founder's story, an origin story for the organization itself, or stories around the people that you're actually helping, where you can highlight, hey, this is how we were actually able to change lives or make the environment a better place. If you can summarize that into a quick explainer video, or a video that's anywhere from 1 to 3 to 5 minutes, people are going to want to watch the video. And when you've got that good storytelling, they keep watching because they're like, oh wow, this is really captivating, and that's just where the market is right now. I also suggest to all my clients that they should have a page on their website that is specific to either testimonials or
Mm.
stories. These are the stories of the families that we've helped, the individuals we've helped, the animals we've saved. Here's how much plastic we've taken out of the ocean, depending on what your nonprofit is about. But being able to just have a full page on your website that's dedicated to stories is also helpful, because most people are seeking stories out to give them a reason to connect to you.
Yeah, I love that you say that because we've talked to some nonprofits too, and when they used to have like in-person events, they said like the most engaged people who are attending the events were with the nonprofit representatives, was when the nonprofit reps were able to share their stories or their experiences out in the field or with the families or whatnot. And that's when the attendees really got like connected and were just like, wow, I had no idea. Like they, a lot of them would say stuff like, I had no idea that's how deep it went. And so there's a really huge like gravitational pull towards those personal experiences and things that people can relate to versus just stating the stats of like, we do 40% of the cleanup in this and we've changed the emissions and da 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 da. It's like, I think people don't necessarily react to emotionally to statistics versus those real life stories, right?
Oh, definitely. And I mean, marketing really at its core is a combination of heart and science, right? So we talked about some of the science portion early, or just the numbers when you're looking at your budget and you're looking at, working the numbers of how many people you have coming to your website versus how many people actually, take the call to action you want them to take. But storytelling is actually what roots people in.
Mm.
It's sort of like the magnet that that pulls people
Yeah.
in. and gets them to a point where they want to stick around and they want to participate and engage because they heard a story that just, really called out to them and they saw themselves in it, or they saw a family member or a friend or someone that they, met at some point along the way. They can really envision themselves as a part of that story. And that's what makes the storytelling so important.
Awesome. Is there anything more to the storytelling part of this that we didn't get to? I feel like there's so much that we went
Um,
over.
Yeah, but like the only other things I would say is, be really mindful in how you are telling those stories. So again, it's 2021. I can't believe that it's
Not for
2021.
long. It's
Um,
gonna be 2022 soon.
I know, like, no, let's not even go there. but, but video is becoming more popular. So I would say that investing in video, whether that be, professional video that you have done to have an explainer video that you have filmed for in-person events that you're having, if you've got restrictions lifted and you can go back to that in your area, or even having live events. And I know you guys do that at Pop. Having live events recorded and having the video from that as well. That's really the best way you can capture stories at the moment, because that video can then be broken down into other items. So once you've got video, you also have audio that you can repurpose into something else. And you can also take the transcript from that audio and turn that into written content and written storytelling for your organization as well. So just being focused on that and thinking about how often you need to tell news stories to keep people
Mhm.
engaged. Your origin story and your founder's story, those are kind of the same forever. But periodically, go out and talk to the people or different organizations you're working with in your nonprofit where you're making change, and capture those stories, and roll out some new stories every once in a while just to give people new content to come back and hear.
Awesome. Again, I feel like I should be going like, yes, preach.
I feel like you need maybe you just need like a sound effect or
Yeah.
something.
Oh, this is as basic as we can get. If Jamie were here, we could do that. But I just need to be able to hear and see you, and we're good. Okay, so what's tip number 4?
All right. So tip number 4 is to get personal and detailed. And what do I mean by that? So I don't know if anyone remembers getting those like little mailers that the March of Dimes used to send out,
Mm-hmm.
and you'd get a little envelope, and there would be, like a little dime. And for a while, people were like, "Oh, that's really cool. They put like a real dime in the mail." um, that's so awesome. So that was kind of like personalization for, like the 80s and the 90s. We've moved past those days, and so it takes a little bit more to capture a potential donor's, or volunteer's attention. So getting as personal as you can and capturing their information, initially just up front, like you want to have their name, their email, their address, but also paying attention to details like what campaigns or different areas of your nonprofit are they actually making donations to or volunteering for, and keeping that data separate. How often are they actually making contributions or donating to your nonprofit, and actually keeping track of that, like when they make those donations, how much they actually donate, because you can use those details to create really hyper personalized messages that, again, tug on those heartstrings, remind people, that they are actually making a difference. And that, again, just gives them that much more passion, to actually keep participating and to stay engaged. A really good example, so there was a company, not nonprofit but still good example in personalization.
Mm-hmm.
There's a company called Bowden in the UK, and they had an anniversary. They had realized that their sales through email were kind of dipping, so sales weren't the best, and they were trying to figure out, how do we get our sales to go back up through email. So they decided to run a hyper personalized email campaign where they took some of those details I just mentioned. So they took, the name of their customer, but also they looked at details like when was the first time that person made a purchase? When was the last time that person made a purchase? What did they actually buy throughout that process? And so they sent out this email that was super personalized, and it was like, 24 years ago, we started this company, and 5,400 days ago, a little package appeared on your doorstep that contained a pair of our famous fuzzy slippers. And after that, three more packages have arrived at your doorstep from us. And we are really hoping that we've got some great things that you can check out, and potentially we can send you another package soon. They increased the revenue by email through that one email 2,000%.
Wow.
2,000% just by being really, really personal in what
Mm.
they sent out. So imagine, if your nonprofit were able to send out an email that said, hey, we got started X amount of years ago, and since then you've donated this many dollars or this many items or these different types of contributions. And because of that, we've been able to help this many people. We've been able to plant this many trees, whatever it is your nonprofit is around. When you can get to that level of detail, again, it just makes that difference in helping people know, like, and trust you and feel really connected to your cause.
Yeah, and I love the personalization, the emphasis on personalized, because I think a lot of times the perception is I have to speak generally and broadly because I have a large audience. But instead, you got to change your perception that, this is going directly to each individual. So that tone of voice should still be direct and personal versus a overall overarching broad type of voice, right?
Exactly, exactly. And when you think about this in relation to tip number two, which is to track everything, when you're actually tracking everything, personalization becomes a lot simpler. It becomes a lot easier. If you're sending out email campaigns on a regular basis, you can very simply use dynamic fields to store some of that information into your email marketing system, and then sending out emails like that becomes something that you can do pretty quickly, without a lot of extra work or effort on behalf of your organization.
Cool, cool. Okay, we've been keeping you so long, but this is so good, and and people are saying just how awesome this is. So thank you so much for your time. I know we still have one more tip to get to, and this one is probably the one that everyone is going to be asking in their minds. Like, okay, we got all of this stuff, but how do we do this all? So, what is tip number 5?
So tip number five is get help. Don't try to do it yourself. Definitely don't try to do all of this yourself. Get help. If you're a nonprofit organization, there's so many outlets for you to seek help and find individuals who would be more than happy to help you with your marketing. There are some different things that you can do, like potentially creating a volunteer marketing position for your organization and posting that to different, places like Volunteer Match is a really good site that you could consider looking at, or even just posting on Facebook. Hey, we are looking for someone to come in to volunteer and help us with XYZ. Another thing to consider would be looking at different like secondary schools or vocational schools where people have just maybe graduated from studying marketing. Maybe they've gotten a certification and now they're looking to get that hands-on experience so that they can actually build a portfolio. Like I said, I do teach marketing classes, and every class that I've ever taught, like maybe the number two thing that students ask is, okay, well, I learned all this stuff, but like, where do I go get help? Or, like, where
Right.
do I go build my portfolio or actually get some experience doing these things? And I always tell them, look for a local nonprofit and go help them. Like, they're going to get some great assistance in having you help them with their marketing. And then you're going to get really great experience, in actually doing marketing. So definitely don't feel that you have to do everything yourself. You can find help. The other thing I would say is, potentially consider bringing in an intern. Go to your local college or university and go to their marketing or communications department and say, hey, we've got this internship. We want to have a student come in and help us for 3 to 6 months, and that can count as a part of their college credit. It's really a win-win situation for everyone. And then again, as a nonprofit, you're getting more resources and more hands on deck to help you get your marketing going, even though you don't have a massive budget.
I'm glad you brought up the budget, because I think a lot of there's been several times that we've worked with nonprofits and they thought, oh, we need to hire help, and they go to what big corporations would use, which are like ad agencies and marketing agencies, and they spend so much money on them, which for corporate clients that makes sense, but for a small nonprofit, it just didn't seem to me to make that much sense to invest that much money into a service like that. Um, but I think I could expect some of these nonprofits, when they hear you say this, like reaching out to getting, graduate students or interns, that they themselves would go, well, how do I know if they're doing a good job or doing it right? Because I myself, when I hear you telling all these examples, I'm like, I don't know what's right or what's wrong. Like, I understand I got to keep, to have this type of tone and to track these things, but I don't know what to look for. It's like, what would you say to those who understand, yes, I need to have help because I don't have time to learn this, but would wonder, well, how do I know if the person I've brought on is doing it right, or that I'm being told the right things?
Yeah, so that goes back to point number two. Maybe that's the most important point of everything, which is tracking results. So even if you have an intern that you're bringing in and they're kind of new, maybe you're not the most well versed in marketing either. But if you can sit down and create some specific goals or specific metrics that you want to work towards accomplishing with this individual that's going to help you with your marketing, then just looking every 2 weeks, every month, hey, where are we in reaching this goal? And that could be a goal that you set around the number of people who are visiting your website or who are visiting a specific page on your website. It could be around, having a certain amount of donations. It could be around having a certain amount of people on your email list. When you are actually tracking results, you create these little sort of touch points,
Mm-hmm.
along the way to say, okay, we said we were going to have, 100 people on our email list in the next 90 days, but we're 30 days in, we have no new people on our email list. So maybe what we've been doing isn't working as well as we want it to work. Let's actually dive in and pivot. So when you're actually tracking your results, it lets you know
Mm-hmm.
whether or not what you're doing is working, even if you don't have that much experience.
That's awesome. And I think the point that you made in the beginning, which is like, you don't have to go all like start with just, small tasks and goals and such, because I think the first thought is like, oh, I got to do this. Like, it's too much, and they just don't do anything. But having these small little goals and things, and then testing it out, trying it out, is not too bad. It's digestible that way.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, you have to pick and choose your battles, right? Like the chances that any organization is going to absolutely master social media, email marketing, SEO, everything all at once is really slim. But if you can say, for the next 3 months, we're really going to focus on building our email list and make some progress with that, then you're actually creating systems for yourself and processes for yourself that work because you tried it. It worked. You kept doing it. It's still working. So then once you've got that process in place, that's something that you can then just kind of keep running in the background as you then can branch out and try other things that you might be interested in.
Yes. Oh, that sounds great. I am the type that I get overwhelmed and paralysis by analysis. So,
Yeah.
listening to how you've broken this down and presented this, for someone like me to be like enthusiastic about it, excited about it, and also understand it, and not be overwhelmed by, the gravity of like, oh, I got to do so much. Instead, you know, I walk away from this going like, all right, yeah, this is so doable. It's like, cause I try to apply it from the lens of if I was trying to seek advice for how do we market pop better. Same thing. We're a small business. There's only two of us. We don't have a lot of time. We don't have a huge budget, if a budget, like it's a small
Yeah.
type of thing. And so for me, I watched and learned so much through this conversation where I'm like, yeah, it doesn't have to be so overwhelming. It doesn't have to be like all hands on deck. Let's stop everything and do this. It's like, hey, let's experiment. Let's pay attention to these. Let's have some details and goals and go from there. And that's very obtainable. And I think for a lot of our nonprofits that are going to be watching and hearing this, I hope that they'll have that same kind of feeling that I am, where I know the marketing conversation is such an uncomfortable one for them, but maybe this will help them feel like, no, it's doable. This is good. This makes sense.
Hopefully, yeah. Like anytime marketing feels overwhelming, it usually just means that you have too many things on your plate.
Mm,
So you can always make a list of all of the things that all of the things you're trying to do with marketing at once. And that can just be, like something that you sit down and you do a brain dump for 5 minutes and you're like, what are all of these things related to marketing that I have on my mind that I feel like I need to get done? Just write them all down and then take a good hard look at them and cut the fluff, look at the things that again are actually, going to have the potential to give you a return on your investment versus things that you don't need to do specifically in this moment because it's not going to really do anything for you. Cut out the fluff, focus on the things that really matter. And again, you can also take that list and make a timeline. You don't have to do everything today. If you have too many things on your marketing list, set a schedule where you say, for this month, I'm going to focus on this one thing and getting this done. Next month, I'll add in something else. Or once I have this complete, then I'll move on to the next thing. Marketing should never be overwhelming. And if it is, that just means you need to cut something out.
yeah. I'm so glad that we were able to do this. Thank you so much for
Thank
taking time
you.
out of your schedule to be with us. On behalf of all of our viewers, I know they're going to be like so appreciative of all these nuggets and gems that you gave to us. I know that you just launched your YouTube channel, which has a whole bunch of great resources and tips and things as well. What can you share with us about how else people can stay connected with you, glean more information from you, or seek, to hire you for, some help and expertise?
Yeah, definitely. So the YouTube channel is interesting. It's going, but definitely looking forward to getting some more videos out there and really doing more series. Sort of like what we've talked through today, and just helping break things down. In relationship to marketing to make it easy and simple for people to understand. So that's what I'll be sharing on the YouTube channel. I do consult, so you can always just visit my website or send me a DM. I think I'm tagged in the notes here. So you can always just send me a DM. Let me know if you have any questions. And then also on my website, I do have some different resources like guides and things that people can download to just help them have a place where they don't have to start marketing from scratch. You can always start, with a template or a guide or something like that to get you going. And so I do have some of those free resources on my website as well.
This is so awesome. And Brian said, thank you so much for this amazing information. So the fact that Brian has been on this entire time, that shows it was good.
I mean, I feel very honored right now, Brian. Very honored.
Well, if you knew Brian, you might not feel so. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, Brian. He said, and I paid attention. See, so he knows. See, no, Brian's
There's no
awesome.
there's no pop quiz. No pop quiz at the end of this.
But you had mentioned, oh, and Jill's on here. She also thanks you for your insight too. So
Thank you.
everybody's just chiming in right now, showing their appreciation and their love. You mentioned that you have all of this stuff that you brought up today, your five topics and some of the notes that you had, that you could send it to people. So if those who watch this and were like, oh man, I'm terrible at taking notes, you actually like broke it down really well and easy to follow. Um, and you said that you could just send it to them directly if they DM you or send you their contact in the comments section.
Yeah, absolutely. Just shoot me a DM or post a note in the comments below, and I'll get you the show notes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You while you may be in California, I think you definitely embody what we call here the Aloha spirit, and you'd fit so well here if you ever wanted to make, a little trip down here or just relocate here. I think you would be the exact type of person that just fits in with our culture here, and your heart, your humility and honesty is just like something that I think we all gravitate towards, and we're just so grateful and appreciative of you and your time today.
Thank you. And thank you for being a good host and asking good questions and keeping it flowing. Because I sometimes will ramble, Nolan. I will just, I go on tangents that last for a very long time. So I appreciate you keeping everything on track.
Well, if you talk to Jamie and some of the other viewers here, they will tell you that I too tend to do that. So we're I think we understand each other very well.
Yeah. With our rambling powers combined,
Yeah.
we managed to keep things on track.
Yeah. Awesome. So I know Brian would like the notes, and I think Jill probably would as well. So we'll connect you guys. But on behalf of all of our viewers and myself, thank you so much, Ashley. We'll put
Thank
all of
you.
your contact information. I'll go ahead and re-edit the description here if I missed anything. But for those watching this on demand, we'll make sure that we can get you connected with Ashley however you want to. But Ashley, I have a feeling people will want to have you on again. So in the future, so hopefully we can work it out and coordinate where we can have you on again, because this was so awesome. I really, really love this. And I hope that you'll
I would love
consider
that.
joining us again in the future.
Absolutely. I'd love that.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Ashley. Have a great rest of your day. And I'll figure out a way to transition us out of here without it being too awkward and uncomfortable, because I don't know how to work the board. So
I
if anything,
mean, we could just like sing off until we
okay,
figure it out. I don't
let's
know.
do it. Let's pick a song. How can we say goodbye? Oh,
I'm like, what's a good farewell song? Um,
there's two that I
what,
think of. One is
what,
a happy one, which I don't know the lyrics to, which is like the "So long, farewell." Da, 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 da. Or there's a sad one with "It's so hard to say goodbye."
oh, man, that's so sad.
I know, which is not fair. Oh, Brian's saying "Kumbaya," which I don't. I think people will
Kumbaya,
disconnect.
kumbaya.
Okay,
That's like
keep singing, keep singing. I'm gonna go ahead and try and fade us out of here.
kumbaya.